Yes, welcome into the camp. We're back, and the Badgers just 2 weeks out from the start of the season against Miami of Ohio. We learned something today, Jesse, that I did not know. Probably should have known, but as you look ahead to Miami of Ohio, they have a familiar name at quarterback.
They sure do. DeQuan Finn, who visited Wisconsin and was heavily considered a year ago, ended up going to Baylor. Wisconsin went with Tyler Van Dyke. So this is what it's like in college football, though. You're at a different school every year. But what it means is Wisconsin 2 weeks from tonight is going to be facing a very good quarterback who will make it difficult, and we will see how well that front is tested.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to what he did when he was at Toledo before he went to Baylor, and what? I mean, he's certainly more of a runner than he is a passer, but he was pretty successful as a passer as well. I think that was one of the reasons Wisconsin ended up going with Tyler Van Dyke instead. They just felt he was a better passer than DeQuan Finn. But yeah, Finn didn't do anything at Baylor. I know he might have gotten banged up a little bit, but didn't do anything at Baylor. But we'll talk about that as we get closer to the game. I just thought that was interesting today. That name popped up when we were watching practice today. We did get to see practice. I think maybe we'll just real quickly start with some of the injury updates, specifically the big one that happened the other day to Tucker Ashcraft. He left practice on Tuesday, what was a lower body injury. He left on crutches, couldn't put any weight on his left leg. So that appears to be an injury that may take a while for him to get back from. We'll see. They said he is out until the end of camp. The end of camp technically is Saturday, which is also the last time we get to see practice. So that's pretty much all they really needed to say. But that's a tough one because it felt like there was a nice 1-2-3 with Ashcraft, Mason, and Jackson Aker.
And obviously it bumps everybody up. I will say I've been really impressed with Lance Mason. He's gotten a lot more opportunities, certainly as a pass catcher. We talk about those safety valves at tight end. I feel like every series he's out there, he's getting at least a couple, and he did today as well. And because he's such a big body and he's got good hands, he can take a shot and still hold on to it. There's one play I'm thinking of specifically along the right sideline where a safety came over and he got leveled and had the ball and got the first down. So I think he's going to get a lot of reps. Grant Steck now steps into a bigger role. You mentioned Jackson Aker, who we know is going to have some opportunities at fullback, but this just means everybody else has to elevate for however long Tucker is out. And we know there's going to be multiple tight ends used in Jeff Grimes' offense.
Right. The multiple tight ends thing. So like when I was saying that, when I tweeted it out and it's like, yeah, Grant Steck got the 1 reps. He got the 1 reps where Tucker Ashcraft normally would be. Lance Mason is also a starter on this offense. I would consider Lance Mason and Tucker Ashcraft a starter along with Jackson Aker if he were to line up at fullback. But like I consider all 3 of those guys quote unquote starters. So Grant Steck moves into that. He's more of the inline tight end, being asked to block a lot more. Lance Mason, maybe not as much. And then certainly Jackson Aker's always on the move, different places. He had a no-contact jersey today, so he didn't take part either. Kerry Kodanko is the other injury that he left practice the other day, and it's an upper body injury. He was dressed today, didn't do much of anything, but they list him as day-to-day. I don't know that it's something that's serious. I think he'll be fine. But what it does, when you have Jake Renfro already out, and then you lose Kerry Kodanko, it moves everybody up a couple rungs, and that meant Ryan Corey being the starting center. And the only reason Kerry Kodanko, I think, was playing center with the twos was because of some of the snap issues that Ryan Corey had. But there were no issues with him snapping today, I don't think. A little bit further down the line there were. What did you count in your story? How many times did you say snap in your story?
There were
your notes.
Yeah, there were at least half a dozen. Either the snap was not good out of the shotgun, or there was a snap exchange issue. And when we're watching from afar, we're watching from a parking garage because they're on the outdoor field adjacent to Camp Randall. It's hard to know what happened there, but there's a consistent theme, and it is the center. And so AJ Blazek's in a spot right now because you need to develop guys. They have 3 lines that they work with in practice. And if Ryan Corey's going to get your first team reps, well, who's going to get the other reps? They've used Nolan Davenport there. Today they were working with Logan Powell, who's a true freshman. And I think that's a pretty big change for someone like Logan. And there are going to be kinks to work out. You don't expect to come into this camp and even have to do that, let alone as many times as he did today. Ultimately, we know how important Jake Renfro is, and Kerry Kodanko one of the most important O-linemen who, even if he doesn't start, you got to have a good backup center. And now we're seeing what happens when you have to go on down the list. And it makes it harder when you're trying to learn about your team because you can't get the playoffs successful half a dozen times.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. But again, you're down to your fifth center essentially, right? Like you have Renfro, you have Kodanko, you have Ryan Corey, and then you talk about some of the true freshmen, whether it's Logan Powell or Nolan Davenport. That's 4 and 5 guys that you're not necessarily expecting. And I would also say, I wonder how many times in their careers in high school they ever had a quarterback under their butt, like to take a snap. You know what I mean? Like I feel just kind of like the quarterback is like we know Carter Smith never under center before he got here, and so there were some jokes made. Kenny Guyton, saying, or maybe it was Grimes, just how low he got in his stance trying to get the ball from out of there because it's just not something he's used to. The center's probably the same way. That doesn't excuse the shotgun snaps though, because that's if you do that. But again, I don't know how much center they even played in high school. Probably not a ton.
Yeah, that was Kenny Guyton in the spring joking about how low Carter got. And when I was talking to Carter in the summer, I mentioned this once before, but it was because they never did that in high school, and he ran a wing tee in middle school, and that was really the last time he did it. They've gotten that sorted out, but I also don't want to, we're talking about these injuries off the top, and they matter, but I don't want to sound the alarm bells like, oh, there's all these snapping issues. If you're going to have to play your fourth or fifth guy at center, you're going to have problems, but obviously Jake Renfro continuing to work his way back, and again, all we can go on is what we hear with Kerry Kodanko, that hopefully for Wisconsin, these guys will be ready, and it is not long-term, and you don't have to go that far on down the list right now. You just need to fill out the bodies and get guys experience. That's different from having to play Alabama.
Correct. He was not in the rehab group today. So like he was back behind the line with the other offensive linemen. It's not like he was rehabbing like we've seen with Barrett Nelson and with Kevin Haywood. Like they have been working off to the side the entire time and rehabbing. Jake Renfro, also saw him do a little bit today in terms of a couple pass sets. But he's slowly working his way back. It's 2 weeks out from the opener. Based on what I saw today, it might be a stretch for him to play in that one, but I think Kerry Kodanko will, just based on the feel that you got from when they told us about the injury. Like he's day-to-day, which means he could be back tomorrow. The injuries at center have been a bit of an issue because it's led to some of this other stuff. The trickle-down effect of the injuries, not necessarily going to be affecting them come game day, but it's certainly affecting what practice looks like at times when it gets down to that second and third group. So those are a couple of the injuries that popped up. You talked about Lance Mason and some of the catches that he made. I think Eugene Hilton Jr. continues to stand out, and I continue to wonder what kind of a role he has.
I'm right there with you. Obviously, you and I are watching practice together today, and we're having these conversations before we do the show. But every time Hilton's in, I say just throw the ball in his general direction, and he's going to come down with it. And I understand that all these reps are not necessarily coming against the ones, but that's not to say none of them are. I mean, he's going up against some very good defensive backs, guys who have a lot of experience. And so it's tough because I think he stood out probably higher on the list than even some of the starting guys. But is that also because you're getting more opportunities? You're going against different guys? I don't know. I just think he's too good not to play this year. And I don't know what that looks like. But when you have a guy consistently stand out at that position, find a way to get him on the field.
Absolutely. And you mentioned who he's beating. Ran a great route, beat Deone Hill on a sideline route. Right. And it was actually a really good throw, and the coverage wasn't bad, but great catch by Hilton. Also had a back shoulder catch later in practice. As you said, it just feels like when he gets his opportunities, he makes the most of them. And I continue to be impressed. He also had another 15-yard grab on the sideline. So three catches that stand out. Maybe that's not a big deal, but compared to everybody else, I think it's pretty significant. So we'll see. I have no idea what that role is going to be, but there was another guy we were kind of talking about this, was Jaden Ballard. He's been very, very quiet. We saw a ton of him in the spring, a lot of big plays down the field. Got a little more involved today with a few catches, which usually happens when we mention somebody that hasn't been involved. They all of a sudden get involved, and maybe we just pay attention to it more. But he has not necessarily jumped out and hit you in the face. So it's not like, and I would say the same thing about Chris Brooks. He had a ball that was a little bit behind him today, but hit him right in the hands, and it popped up and got picked off by, was it Emilio Agard? Or no, it was Nizier. Who was it?
Well, if you lay out here a little longer, I'll just.
I got it. It was Forkering. So,
okay.
Nizier was right behind him and he picked it off. So it's not like other guys are going out and just making big time plays every single time they're out there. And that's why it's what's keeping them off the field. I don't know that I've seen any separation from those guys. And you would hope at some point, maybe he gets an opportunities with the ones here before fall camp start or before the season starts. Cause we haven't seen a ton of that.
Yeah, I found it in my notes here. It was, Billy Edwards Jr., who we should mention, by the way, practicing. He's got a brace, and his knee got the black spandex wrap over it, but he's out there. So,
but it's an actual brace, though.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting that out there. Like, he was not wearing a brace before. Now he is wearing a brace with the sleeve over it. So I think it's probably just to protect it. But it for it just to be a knock on knees thing and for them to be wearing a brace, antennas are up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the fact he's out there a couple of days later is a good thing, and you never know how much it's impacting a guy. I can't imagine it's very fun to be wearing something that bulky when you're trying to throw. But either way, the play that we're talking about is ball maybe 20, 25 yards down the field, and maybe it was a little high, a little behind, but you're right. It was a pass Brooks should have caught, and Nizier ended up picking it off. Brooks did have a couple other catches, but you're right. I think how would you rank the wide receivers who have stood out here? And that's tough and not always fair because we know what Vinny Anthony is going to bring to the table. And so you're getting a lot of other guys involved. I think a guy like Tyrell Henry has stood out in a number of ways. I think Eugene Hilton has as well. But if you feel like your top three is going to be Vinny and Jaden on the outside with Tretch Kekahuna there, how many guys are you going to play? I still think, though, that Hilton will eventually work his way into a role. I don't think that's a guy you want to plan to redshirt.
It's tough to talk about Tyrell Henry because some of the stuff that we see him doing can't actually talk about. So like that, right? You can't talk scheme. So with some of the stuff that he's doing and being asked to do, I don't know that there's anybody else in that receiver room that has the ability to do those things. And so when he gets his opportunities or when he gets out there, he's more noticeable because of it. But it's been a quiet camp for Tretch as well. Like, I don't know that we've seen a ton of things from him. It's maybe not opportunities presenting themselves maybe as much as for some other guys.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And also when you're putting all these things together and you're running the ball more and you're trying to figure out what that looks like, it's just a different camp, obviously, from what we saw the last 2 years. And ultimately, if being targeted fewer times or not having two guys stand out means you're going to have a better offense overall, Wisconsin will gladly take it. But it does make it difficult to evaluate the wide receiver room. And therefore, when there is a guy that makes even a couple of catches, you're tracking it a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's not to say Tyrell Henry hasn't made plays in the passing game. He definitely has. He had a great one today, almost right after the Chris Brooks play. He caught one from O'Neal, had to go up and get it, and did. So we'll see. If you had to bet at this point, and I kind of did this with the tight ends thing, I had to bet at this point, like who ends up leading them in catches? It's still Vinny Anthony?
I would think so. He hasn't done anything to dissuade me from that. Look what he did a year ago, and I know it's a different offense, but I think he's still going to be your go-to guy. I do wonder, though, how often are they going to air it out down the field? Now, the good thing they have here is you can way better set up the play action because you're going to be able, presumably, to run the ball better, and he is a burner, can get down the field quickly with that speed. So I'm still going to go with him.
Okay. Let's flip over to the other side of the ball because we got a chance to talk to Mike Tressel today, the defensive coordinator, along with several inside linebackers, including Tommy Heiberger, who we hadn't seen. I don't know that he's talked. Did he talk before fall camp? I don't think he did. So he is back and wearing quite the brace. We learned today what that injury was that knocked him out of practice last fall camp. It was a dislocated knee, cap? Knee or kneecap?
Kneecap. I asked him, like, because, yeah, we've not talked to him. And I said, a year ago in fall camp in Platteville, and Matt Mitchell mentioned this a year ago, you were in position to play, and then you got hurt. What happened, and where have things gone from there? And he said he dislocated his kneecap, and then in spring ball, so he was able to come back. They said it was a 6-week timetable. He said he actually was cleared in off the bye week in time for the USC game, and they kind of worked him in on special teams, so he played a little bit, and he was feeling good, feeling better about this defense. Well, we got to spring, and he got hurt again. He dislocated the kneecap again, which required him to undergo surgery. I can't imagine how painful that is. He kind of compared it to a shoulder that pops out, and then they pop it back in and you feel better, but obviously you need some recovery time. So he is tremendously talented. They have moved him from initially as an outside linebacker and more of a pass rusher to an inside linebacker who needs to play a little bit more in space. He has gotten some first team reps with if a guy is dinged up for a practice or whatever. I don't know how many opportunities there are necessarily going to be when you've got Christian Allegro and Tackett Curtis on the field, but I absolutely know he's going to be a part of that rotation, and maybe even a Cooper Catalano, who received a lot of praise from Mike Tressel. But since we're talking about Heiberger, they were so high on him when they brought him in. They said he fit the mold of what they wanted in this new defense of that long athletic type. You just have to be able to stay healthy, and sometimes it's out of your control. Like a dislocated kneecap feels like such a freak injury. And then obviously if it happens once, it can happen again. So he said he's very eager to shed the knee brace because much like if you're a quarterback, any position, like who wants to have something that bulky when you're trying to track down dudes who can run as fast as they do in the Big Ten? So we'll see what his role ultimately is, but he has started to come on strong here a little bit in camp.
I think it's at least worth noting that he is, I would say, attacking the change, the position change, but he also, it seemed like he was a little hesitant to make it, right? But said that because of who he is, he's taking out coaching points, doing all that stuff that you need to do when you're making that position switch. But he was I think, a little hesitant and unsure if that was going to be the best move for him. And we'll see if it ends up being. But getting back, I think he had the surgery and then he was back like 5 months. I know that a few people in the program just like astonished that he was able to get back as quickly as he is, but he's another one of those guys you kind of got to hold him back from himself at times because he just wants to be out there and play. When you talk about football guys, it's a little bit of cliche, but I think he's absolutely a football guy. So yes, Thomas Heiberger was part of the conversation with Mike Tressel. I don't know that this is a huge surprise, but just asking him where he feels, especially now here 2 weeks into camp, where he feels depth-wise feels good, and maybe where there's some questions, is the defensive line, the front four specifically, where they have so many different guys that they can throw that. And we've seen that, right? We've seen them throw different combination of guys in practice on a daily basis.
Absolutely. It depends on the situation, but they can just go 2 for 2 in the interior. They can have a Parker Peterson and Brandon Lane stop the run. You can throw in a Ben Barton, Javier Suggs, Charles Perkins, Dylan Johnson, go on down the line. And even some of these guys with the different body types, Michael Garner, he can have his hand on the ground. He can also be a stand-up guy. There's just so much versatility there. And obviously the hope, and they've been talking about this all fall, with more depth, you can rotate more, you can keep guys fresher, and you can avoid what happened late last season when you collapsed. You lost 5 straight games. You were basically rolling with, 13, 14, 15 guys. You just had to go with them because you didn't have much choice. Everything they've done has built toward this, designed toward being able to sustain it longer. And of course, they are able to do the same thing on the edge now too because of those body types. So you can have Garner with his hand down, you can have him on the outside. You can do the same thing with a Daryl Peterson. You've got Corey Walker at 297 pounds, and then the different body types we've talked about with the Tyrese Fearbry, Sebastian Cheeks, Mason Rigers. So it's all good and well to talk about this at this time. We'll see whether it actually makes a difference, but at the very least, they feel better about what they've attempted to achieve to get to this point that they feel like is going to give them a better chance to succeed when they get into the games.
Yeah, Michael Garner had a TFL today, dropped Darian Dupree in the backfield early in practice. Talk about Mason Riger, who has been in and out just because they're trying to maybe limit some of his things, or limit his exposure to reps and to hits and all that good stuff because they want him to be on the field when the games or things actually matter. But Mike Tressel did talk about him and called him the most professional guy that they have when they come out onto the practice field. And you kind of saw that today, even after practice. Him and Daryl Peterson working on pass rushing moves. And then when Daryl Peterson left, Mason Posa came over after this young guys period, and they were working on pass rush moves together there too. And he was serving as a teacher, serving as a coach, serving as a leader.
I was going to say that exact same thing because it was happening near where we were doing some of the group interviews that Riger was just one-on-one with Mason Posa, teaching him the things that he knew. And I think that stuff matters a great deal, especially when you haven't had success, but you come in and you're a quote unquote new guy, even if you have experience somewhere else. How are you going to handle yourself? And that's him every single practice. So that's important because Posa could represent the future, certainly at inside linebacker. He's gotten more reps. Obviously, if someone goes out, then some of those younger guys are going to get more chances. And he has stood out to me. Like, I don't know that he's necessarily ready to go week one, given the other body types they have and the fact Hooper Catalano got that spring. If he had gotten the spring, I could envision him playing right now just because of the athlete he is. And I asked Tressel about him specifically, and he said there are some plays you see where he displays the type of athleticism that he put on film in high school. And one thing about him is with the way his mentality and approach, like basically Tressel said, he does not care. He's just, not that he doesn't care about football, but like he is going to do his best to make the play. And there are certain innate qualities you kind of have with that attacking mindset that are there for him. But to your point, yeah, Riger has been a standout on the field during practice and after as well.
Yeah, also at a TFL on Darian Dupree in an 11-on-11 period. I want to say it was almost right after Daryl Peterson had won. He dropped Dupree for a loss. We haven't seen and heard and talked a lot about Daryl Peterson either in this camp, but he's still running with the ones. He's still a starter, and he's going to be out there quite a bit, you would think, right? As he put on weight. Again, is he like one of the lone Chris guys left?
No, I mean, Aaron Witt is still at the star linebacker role, Ricardo Hallman. They have a handful
Preston
left.
Zachman, Austin Brown. Yeah.
Veterans who have been around. But
I guess I meant more along the defensive line in the outside linebacker room, right? Like you have Ben Barton.
Ben Barton. Yeah.
That's that might be it, right? It's
him and Ben Barton. You only have a couple scholarship guys that returned from last year. It's him, Dylan Johnson, and Brandon Lane. So
yeah, I feel like I just feel like he's been a forgotten guy up there just because they brought in so many other people, and he had such a quiet season last year. But we'll see exactly what that looks like. We had a couple of more interceptions from Emilio Agard today. One looked like a miscommunication, right? Is that where we're going with?
I think so. Between quarterback and wide receiver, but you still got to make the play if you're the DB, and Agard was able to do it.
He did. And then it also allegedly, we don't have any replay on it, but he got flagged. Emilio Agard got flagged for defensive pass interference on what would have been a Owen Arnett interception down the field as well. So there were some plays made on defense. Tyrese Fearbury, another TFL on Gideon Atuka as well. It's so difficult to decipher exactly what this is all going to look like, but it feels like so many different names pop out on a daily basis on the defensive side of the ball making plays, and that's a good thing. And Jamari Washington had another interception, maybe. I think you think that one was incomplete, but that's fine. We can disagree. It was still a nice play, right? Like he ripped the ball out of the receiver's hands. I think it was 22. I think it was Kyan Barry Johnson, but. Yeah, I mean, some nice plays from those guys.
Yeah, I think he might have gotten it out of bounds, but I wasn't on the field. And again, we don't have access to replay. Either way, I think that may be ultimately what they hope. One of the strengths of the defense is multiple guys. You don't necessarily know who it's going to be on a given day, but the ability to rotate means if someone gets hot, you can potentially keep them in there. Of course, when someone makes a play defensively, it means someone made a mistake offensively. And I know we say that every practice and very frequently on this show, but that makes it tough to discern. I do think, though, that we've seen some pretty good things this camp out of that group defensively that certainly make you believe they will be better in these areas where they struggled in. Like the TFLs, I mean, you're last in the country. Like they have the body types to be more impactful there, certainly.
So this is going to be a little bit of a tough question, but I got a few of them on Twitter, and Ed thought it would be an interesting topic for the show. how you're feeling about each position group, better, same, weaker, as they end camp in 2025 versus the end of camp in 2024, which is a little bit, which is tough, right? And he said it would help him sort out hype versus reality. And I think that's a very fair question and a very fair point. I think it's very difficult to go back and think about what exactly we thought about each group coming out of 2024, though maybe that's something that I could do and go back and look and see what we said about each group. I guarantee we were talking about the outside pass, like the pass rush, though I do think that was more of and I could be wrong, I feel like that was more of a spring thing than maybe it was a fall camp thing. So not trying to let us off the hook on any stretch. We certainly made John Pius and Leon Lowry out to be perhaps slightly better pass rushers than they ended up being, for sure. But maybe have to go back and look at it before trying to actually break that entire question down. I don't know. How do you feel? Maybe a little bit.
Well, we'd have to go position by position. So if you want to, we can do that. It's also hard. Like, here's what I will, to defend ourselves. What are we supposed to say and or report when you've got outside linebackers getting like 3 sacks in a practice? Oh, it's definitely not going to translate. What it does is, much like year 1 to year 2, it informs our opinion moving forward. And so I just want to put that out there.
Yes. Maybe that is a topic for another show. Just maybe having go back and take a look next week, maybe when we don't have any practice to cover. It might be a little bit easier to do that. He also had another question that he thinks it feels like there's more freshmen and redshirt freshmen that are challenging for 2 deep roles than they've seen the last couple of years. Has there been some change in recruitment philosophy and or development, or has luck just shifted in the staff's favor here?
That's a very good question, and I don't have access to how many redshirt freshmen played in previous years. What I will say is, what's changed, what they feel like the level of talent is in these last couple of classes. And again, stars and rankings aren't everything, but they signed 11 composite 4-star players in one class and like 5 the next. I think these 2 classes have 16 composite 4-star players. And so if you come in with a higher degree of talent, at least perceived talent or what you've put on film, maybe you develop a little bit earlier. That's not to say a 3-star guy can't develop, like Cooper Catalano, 3-star guy, but all-time leading tackler in the state of Wisconsin. So you're getting really quality recruits. Eugene Hilton Jr. was a very high-level wide receiver recruit. Emilio Agard was a 4-star DB. So that's a redshirt freshman that is going to contribute and potentially start. So I think that has something to do with it. But you also need good fortune, if you are that player, to have some older guys maybe get hurt or you just stand out. So I do think that is something that when people talk about how poor the first 2 years have been, Luke Fickell, overall record-wise, if you're looking for optimism or a silver lining, it's all right. Give him time for his people to develop and see what happens when you bring in 16 4-star recruits. And like Kevin Haywood, dude was going to start at tackle, just unfortunately suffered a torn ACL. So those are the kinds of pieces you need to develop early to become foundational guys in the future.
Right. I mean, look at last year's true freshman that ended up playing more than 4 games. It was Darian Dupree. It was Kevin Haywood. It was Dylan Johnson. All 3 of those guys, obviously Haywood got hurt, but the other 2 are going to play roles this year, and Darian Dupree is going to probably play a pretty big role. Go and look at the redshirt sophomores that played last year. Tretch played. That is essentially it.
Yeah, no, nobody's left in that class. He's got 5 guys, I think, from that one.
Right, but those guys, the guys that left, didn't play.
Right.
It's not like they played and then ended up somewhere else. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that there's more guys potentially looking for playing time. Obviously, Ryan Corey, don't really have a choice there at this point, just in terms of at center. But Emerson Mandel is going to be the starter at right guard as of today, right?
Dylan Jones is probably your starting running back, and if he's not, it's 1-2 with 2 guys who are second-year players. Obviously, Dupree didn't redshirt, Jones did, but yeah, these have to be your foundational guys that you say if there's going to be a change at Wisconsin, it's coming from there. Yep,
absolutely. Let me see. Who are some other guys that we might see? Thomas Heiberger, redshirt freshman, that is going to play. You mentioned Emilio Agard. Gideon Atuka, who is a little bit further down the depth chart, but has looked good. And I wouldn't be against seeing him in a game. You know what I mean? Just the way that he runs. So there, and then the true freshmen, through injuries or otherwise, are littered all over the 2 deep. Right? You got Cairo Skanes, you have Jameer Scott, you have Cooper Catalano, Mason Posa's maybe a little bit further down. But yeah, there are guys littered throughout that are potentially going to play roles this year that wouldn't have last year. And some of it is, let's be fair, some of it is injury-wise, some of it is just not having a ton of depth in places. But I think it's accurate to say that more guys are having a chance, and that's because that's how talented those 2 classes were, I think, and because of some of the holes that need to be filled that perhaps were opened up because of the previous class not working out the way that they were hoping.
Yes, time will tell, of course, but there is at least reason for optimism with some of this young talent at this point.
Absolutely. So, anything else you wanted to hit on? You got any stories? Any stories that you wanted to plug?
Well, we've got 2 open practices left. So Friday and Saturday, and then that is technically the end of fall camp. Hopefully there's some type of scrimmage on Saturday. That's the expectation. I know we'll be back on Friday and then Monday to break it all down. But now that we've had a chance to see a few weeks of practices, I'll have a story on just a position by position look on what I've seen and where things stand. We've gone through it a bit, but I'll have that a little more in depth, and obviously much more on the way at Badger Connect, and more of those Badger Bites videos too, with some one-on-ones of interviews with key guys.
Well, I was going to ask about that because I don't think we talked. Did we talk about it on Tuesday? Well, if we did, okay. If we didn't, let's do it again. Obviously, Vinny Anthony had an opportunity to sit down with Alex Erickson, one of the more underrated wide receivers. Now that we're talking about it, I kind of feel like we have talked about it, but one of the more underrated wide receivers to ever play at Wisconsin, at least in my opinion. And you had a chance to sit in and listen to it. And the day it happened, he told me how great it was. And it seems like it's certainly living up to that.
This has been my favorite video we've done so far. We obviously also did one with Joe Thomas and Riley Mallman, but it's easier for, I think, people to see, oh, Vinny Anthony had his first touchdown pass. Let's watch this route and everything that happened, as opposed to offensive line play, which can be a little bit more tricky. And not to say that it's not entertaining, but just I think Vinny and Alex played off each other really well. And what was so funny, and I put this out on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, but Billy Edwards Jr. showed up. He opened the door. I think there were supposed to be guys meeting in the wide receiver room, and he just kind of froze. You can see it in the clip that was posted. And they turn around and they're like, "Hey, Billy, we're breaking down film of Vinny. You wanna watch?" He just came in and started watching, and then got involved in this video. And that was not part of the plan, but it was neat to kind of see that rapport. But it was just fun to see Vinny talk about what he looks for as a wide receiver, how a cornerback is playing him, how he knows that this means it's an alert. And I think it's easier for them to talk about it because they're discussing an offense that they're not currently in. So you're not giving away any state secrets, because that's not what you're going to see this season. But yeah, it was 20 minutes in the end, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So if you're still on the fence about Badger Connect, obviously I'm biased, but hopefully you can subscribe, because we're getting ready for the start of football season, and obviously volleyball and basketball isn't too far off as well, and hockey as well. So we got all that covered.
It's going to be a ton of fun to follow throughout the entire year. Got to be quarterback friendly, right? If you're a wide receiver, got to be quarterback friendly.
I'd say that's fair. You don't want to be the reason that your quarterback just threw a pick six.
Yeah. I thought it was like, what are you looking for in a quarterback? Or excuse me, what are you looking for as a quarterback from a wide receiver? And dependability is probably at the top of that list, being where you're supposed to be on a regular basis. And Alex Erickson usually was. So good guy to listen to. Jesse, we'll be back tomorrow. Badgers back on the field tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach. Talk soon.
All right, there he is. Jesse Temple from Badger Connect. You've been listening to The Camp.